Greetings, searchers after horror. I'm TJ Cooley, and you're listening to 3 a.m. Tales for the Witching Hour. In tonight's episode, a video editor witnesses something strange while working on a project for an up-and-coming hiking vlogger. This is episode number 1, and tonight's story is entitled Thru-Hike. What is up, Trail Fam? It's your boy, Thru-Hiker98 here, and today is a momentous occasion. Kevin's cheerful voice boomed out of the reference monitors in my editing bay. It had always sounded kind of funny, hearing him ham it up for the camera, but I'll admit, I was proud of him. He'd managed to let go of a lot of the awkwardness that plagued his early videos. I trimmed the pause at the end of his sentence, making a clean jump cut to a point in the video where he proudly held an American Airlines ticket towards the camera. I just booked a flight to San Diego. Now, I know I've been talking about this for a long time. Well, it's finally happening. I'm taking on the PCT. I paused the video and threw in an overlay of party streamers and some wacky background music. Oh, and I couldn't possibly forget. Kevin stepped out of frame briefly and returned, triumphantly holding a bright yellow backpack above his head. Dun dun dun! I didn't hear back from Osprey. Hashtag not sponsored. But I want to thank my sweet baby sister for getting me this awesome new backpack for the trip. You might see a little bit of masking tape over here by the manufacturer's logo. Like I said, hashtag not sponsored. But I can assure you, it was very expensive, and I really appreciate it. Thank you so much, sis. Kevin sat the backpack aside and retrieved some other bits of gear. He lifted the camera off the tripod and spoke directly into it. Hey, Scotty-O, I'm gonna get some close-up shots of this new tent setup. If it's not too much trouble, just slow the footage down and throw it on whenever I'm talking about the tent. Per Kevin's suggestion, I edited the close-up footage of the gear. I spent the rest of the session sprinkling the close-ups throughout the rest of the video, just accenting little bits here and there whenever it seemed appropriate. At this point, nothing out of the ordinary had happened, and I didn't really have any reason to think that it would, but... God, I was wrong. It was Tuesday, April 3rd when I got Kevin's first update from the trail. Well, not from the trail, exactly, but rather from the small town of Campo, California, which marked the southernmost terminus of the trail. He hadn't headed out to begin the hike proper yet, but he did get a lot of footage of the trip to Campo, which he forwarded on using the free Wi-Fi at a small restaurant in town. At that point, I'd been working with Kevin for several years, and in that time, we came up with a process that was a good fit for the both of us. See, it was me who got Kevin into the whole online social media vlogging thing, and I've kind of been helping out since the beginning. Oh, Jesus, I still remember way back when getting a call from him one night. He was so upset, almost like he was going to cry. I guess he'd been planning this big week-long hike. He'd saved up all of his vacation days and bought a bunch of supplies, even scheduled his holiday time off at work months in advance. But I guess something went down at the coffee shop where he was working at that time. Somebody quit, or there was some flu going around, I don't remember. But Kevin's boss reneged on the paid time off and told him he'd lose his job if he left for the hiking trip. Kevin was heartbroken. All that time spent planning, straight down the drain. So he asked me that night. He said, I don't know what to do, man. You think I should stick it out here, or what? Now, I've never been one to blow smoke up somebody's ass. I try not to give life advice if I can help it, because, shit, I don't know any more about life than anybody else. But it was plain to see that Kevin was getting fucked over here. So I was just honest with him. I told him, look, you're obviously passionate about this. This is the only thing you've talked about for the last 3 months. Maybe you should consider following your passions. As much of a platitude as it was, Kevin took my advice to heart. He spent a few days brainstorming ways that he could turn his passion into a living, and within a week he'd started the Thru-Hiker98 vlog. That first week-long trip became his first month of uploads, and the channel grew so quickly that he didn't even miss his job at the coffee shop. He was too busy trying to make a go of it as an online personality, and I was happy to see that he started making a living out of it early on. Eventually, he was earning enough income to hire me to edit his videos. I mean, of course, I'd been helping him out on and off since the beginning with pro bono work, but once the money really started coming in, he was happy to take me on as his full-time editor, and hell, I was happy for the steady paycheck. Which brings us back to early April of this year when Kevin finally felt ready for the Pacific Crest Trail. I said we had a system worked out, and I mostly mention it because I'm proud of it. It took us a long time to get in the rhythm of things. At the outset, the main challenge was getting an upload schedule that would actually hold people's attention. With these week and month-long hikes, there was a lot of time in between uploads. Kevin would get back after a few months on the trail, edit the videos, then slowly release them, and this left gaping holes in the upload schedule as Kevin collected footage to edit later on. And this is where I came in. See, I manage Kevin's editing as well as his uploads these days, and every time he gets back to civilization, that is, whenever he finds a town or a place to stop for the night, he sends me all the footage that he's taken while he was out in the woods. At first it was kind of awkward, not at all like the other editing jobs I've taken where you can expect to hear back from someone before the workday is out. There's no submitting preliminary work prior to finalizing the edits, because, the producer, the director, and the star, they're all just the one guy, and that one guy is 300 miles of backwoods trail from the nearest internet connection. So I'd get used to not hearing from Kevin for long stretches of time, usually days in between contacts, sometimes even an entire week. And when he did get a hold of me, we didn't usually bother with talking on the phone or anything like that. All that would happen is my computer would let out a little beep, and an email notification would pop up on the screen to let me know when I had more footage to edit. If there was any necessary direction or production notes, Kevin would just tell me in the video, which was fine by me. All this to say, I got the first batch of footage from Kevin on April 3rd. Nothing unusual at the start. He had the jitters, like anybody would, but mostly, his attitude was positive, ready and raring to go. What's up, Trail fam? It's your boy Thru-Hiker98 here, coming at you from the Pacific Crest Trail. Kevin grinned into the camera, which was mounted on his chest, pointed towards his face in a setup they call a snorri cam. It gave a good view of his upper body and whatever was behind him, and there was a second camera mounted on his back to show what was in front of him, but he had just started filming for the day, so the back cam wasn't recording yet. Would you look at this? Kevin spun on his heel, as was tradition for the beginning of each video. The world spiraled behind him, all around thick, scrubby brushes blew in a light breeze. We're off to a great start, as you can probably tell. It's beautiful out here. He hitched the yellow backpack up a little higher on his shoulders and cinched down the straps. Not much to report yet, just enjoying the weather. Honestly, I'm surprised that I haven't run into anybody out here yet. I thought I was heading out during the peak of the season, for the northbound set anyways. Here, Kevin paused for a moment, and a subtle look of disappointment crept across his face. He laughed to himself. I had to catch an Uber to get out here to the trailhead. It's funny. It's funny. I had this big list of trail angels when I came out. I figured I'd get a ride with one of them. No dice. Kevin's voice trailed off and he sighed deeply. I backed the transport up a few seconds and stopped it just before he started musing on the emptiness of the trail. I cut the footage there. It didn't seem very on-brand for Thru-Hiker98 to be bummed out on the first day of a major hike. The next few hours of footage was a bunch of beauty shots of Southern California. I threw some upbeat Incompetech music into the audio track and color graded each shot until it was perfect and glamorous. It was odd to think that Kevin had set out during the most popular time for the northbound PCT hikers, yet hadn't encountered another living soul. What were the odds of that? Surely it wasn't unheard of. Besides that, though, there wasn't much else to differentiate this video from all the others I'd edited for the channel. After a few hours of wilderness shots were condensed down into a minute or so of footage, I watched Kevin set up camp and prepare a bag of freeze-dried food. Everything sped by at 8 times speed, as it always did. Kevin compulsively recorded everything he did. Honestly, it was kind of a pain to sort through, but in those rare instances where I needed to pull footage of him eating reconstituted spaghetti from a bag, I had plenty of clips to choose from. At roughly 8:30 p.m. on the first night, Kevin's eyes widened and he dropped his bag of food right into his sleeping bag. He craned his head over his shoulder, evidently straining to hear something. I brought up the audio track and increased the gain until I could hear the hissing of the microphone preamps. There didn't appear to be anything out of the ordinary. With the volume turned up, I could make out the sound of the wind blowing through the trees, though this was hardly cause for alarm. Hell, it was the most common sound in the world to anyone who's ever been on a hike. Nevertheless, Kevin continued to sit motionless, his head cocked to one side, listening. This went on for about 10 minutes. Eventually, he placed the remainder of his food into a bear bag and hung it from a nearby tree. He went straight to bed without saying anything, but left the camera on. That's not uncommon, I should mention, because Kevin really liked time lapses. In particular, he really enjoyed seeing the shadows crawl across the camp in the morning when the sun came up. Normally, I'd just change the play speed and move on, but Kevin's behavior just before bed was worrisome. I checked the clock. I still had plenty of time left in the day to finish editing the first batch of footage, so I decided to do a little bit of amateur audio forensics. I took the footage from the timeline where Kevin's expression changed and exported the audio. It took a few minutes, but I managed to profile the background noise and reduce the hissing sound coming from the mic preamps. It's hard to explain exactly what I was hearing in that processed sound. Beyond the usual artifacts left by that sort of processing, there was something else, a sort of tightening sound. I don't know how to describe it. It's almost like the sound that you get when you wring a leather glove in your hands. Whatever it was, it made me uncomfortable, so I got back to editing the rest of the video. What's up, Trail fam? It's me, Thru-Hiker98. Kevin's voice had taken on a fatigued quality. I didn't get much sleep last night. I don't know if it was something I ate or what. I just haven't been feeling too good. Kevin spun the camera around like he always did. The scenery hadn't changed much at all since the last day. I figured Southern California must just look a little samey around those parts. I mean, it's weird, right? A whole day and night without seeing anybody? I paused the video and considered returning to the previous day's footage. I hadn't planned on keeping any of this in the final edit, but I realized that it might become a major plot point for Kevin, the lack of people he was meeting on the trail. I mean, if he was going to bring it up every morning until he actually ran into somebody, I couldn't just cut that part out of every single day. So I ended up returning to the previous day's footage and scrubbing through the timeline looking for the bit about the lack of hikers on the trail. I ended up overshooting that section of the video and landing at the point where Kevin had spun around to reveal the environment on the first day, and that's when I realized it. The two spins were the same, not just similar, not just samey, they were identical. I mean, obviously the takes were different, Kevin's expression and the motion of the camera were different, but the environment was identical. I opened two windows in my editing software and looked at the clips side by side. In each clip I could see that to Kevin's left, there was a small bit of scrub brush. To his right, there was a gradual incline up a rocky hill, and in the distance, far behind him, there was a massive, gnarled tree. And that was the thing that really stuck out to me. It was the same tree in both clips. I could tell because of its distinct silhouette. The trunk came up a ways, maybe 8 or 9 feet, and then branched off in two directions. One of the branches was broken off at the base, and the other jutted out near perpendicular to the trunk, almost parallel with the ground. It looked like the kind of tree you might hang a tire swing from. Kevin had done the video intro, the spin, 2 separate times in the same location. And this felt odd to me, so I double-checked the metadata on the files, and they were both, in fact, recorded one day apart, and also separated by an entire day's worth of footage in which Kevin was clearly hiking across new ground. Had he done 2 takes on the first day, and edited the later take into the new footage? Why would he do that? I mean, how would he do that? He didn't travel with editing software, just a Chromebook and a hard drive to transfer all the data to our network folder. Outside my window, the sun had started to go down. I'd spent the whole afternoon editing the video, and I felt like this mystery would have to wait for another day. I quickly recut the monologue from the first day to include the bit where Kevin was surprised by how empty the trail was. Then I joined my wife in the living room to spend the rest of the night watching TV. The next morning, I got to work on more footage from the first week. I was relieved to see that on the second night, nothing strange had happened. Kevin had set up camp and ate a meal and then went to bed. I time-lapsed the footage down to a few seconds and the sun rose on the third day. I scrubbed through several hours of footage from the chest cam. Kevin seemed dejected for the most part, his face drooping moodily. And then suddenly his eyes lit up. I slowed the video down to normal speed and played it back. "Well, hey guys, how's it going?" Kevin said with a big grin. Evidently, he'd finally encountered someone else on the trail. I checked the bin of video files and saw that there wasn't any backcam footage for this moment, which meant, coincidentally, that there wasn't any microphone pointed forward, so I couldn't hear what the other party said in reply. Kevin did his usual thing and asked the stranger if he could film them for his YouTube channel. "Oh, no? No, that's okay. Let me just..." The footage cut off there. Apparently, the other party didn't want to be featured on the channel, and Kevin was obliging them. I grabbed the next clip from the bin and put it into the timeline. It was nighttime. Kevin was alone and still hiking. He hadn't set up camp. His voice trailed off as he trudged forward. Anything relating to the other people he'd encountered hadn't been recorded, or if it was, he hadn't sent it to me. Kevin's face was drained of color. His eyes were sunken, and he panted as he walked. I don't know if this is... He seemed confused, like he couldn't figure out what he wanted to say. Then, he stopped in his tracks and cocked his head to the side, just like he had the night before. This time I didn't have to process the audio. The sound from the previous night was back, and it was clearly audible. Kevin's attention was focused purely behind him. The footage was near black beyond the reach of the small ring light that was mounted to the Snorri-Cam. Overtaken with morbid curiosity, I pulled up the levels adjustment for the clip as it played. I tweaked the settings, brightening the background. Kevin's face blew out and became a white, ghost-like smear as I artificially boosted the exposure. My heart sank as I saw what was behind him. It was the same tree, with its one broken branch and the other jutting out over the ground. Kevin didn't seem to notice the tree, per se, but the sound he was listening for was definitely coming from that same direction. It was that same awful, subtle, ringing sound, like twisting a piece of leather. In the distance, a snap rung out, like a large animal crushing a twig as it moved through the brush. The sound hit Kevin like a weight and jarred him out of his frozen state. He started moving again, and gibbering as he went. Can you hear that? Do you guys hear that? Kevin, gaining speed, lurched forward and stumbled across the uneven terrain of the trail. The leather sound faded as he jogged across the dirt and rocks, but it didn't disappear. Whatever it was moving towards him and almost keeping up. Jesus Christ, I thought. I pushed my chair away from the desk and grabbed my phone to call Kevin. Unsurprisingly, I went straight to voicemail. Of course, he'd be in the middle of nowhere, between towns right now, far from cell service. The footage was from a week prior, so whatever happened, I figured at least he made it to an internet connection to send the files. Feeling a little sick to my stomach, I sat back down at the desk and pulled up the directory for the video clips. The plan to edit the video was done for. Now, I only wanted to make sure that my friend was alright. I pulled the next video in the sequence, a file dated from the day after the last clip. An anxious sickness crept up in my throat as the media loaded. The picture, which could barely be made out through the grime on the camera lens, showed Kevin lying on his side, his eyes closed and his head resting against the packed dirt of the trail. The yellow straps of the backpack were caked in dried mud. Mercifully, the rubbery, leathery sound could not be heard. A few minutes into the video, Kevin's eyes shot open and he panted heavily, as if waking from a nightmare. He stood up and dusted himself off. What's up, Trail Fam? It's your boy, Thru-Hiker 98 here, coming at you live from the Pacific Crest Trail. I was taken aback. He seemed to be his old self again. Well, not completely. He was still doing his over-the-top vlogger routine, but he genuinely seemed to be fine, like the events of the last few days hadn't happened at all. He spun around on his heels, showing his surroundings again. Having an awesome time out here on the trail today. Man, would you look at this place? It's beautiful out here. I don't know why or how, if this is some kind of joke at my expense or what, but I swear to God it was the same. The same exact place on the trail with the scrub brush, the hillside, and worst of all, that goddamn misshapen tree off in the distance. You know, it's weird. I really figured I would have run into somebody by now. I read online that this is the most popular time of year for northbound hikers. Oh, hey, let me just... He reached out to the camera and rubbed the dirt from the lens with one of the microfiber cloths that he kept for that purpose. When the picture came back into focus, I could see that he was smiling. No, grinning, from ear to ear. I sent the transport ahead at high speed. Something about the way he looked into the camera unsettled me to my core. It was as if he was looking through the camera, straight through into my eyes as I sat there in my house in the suburbs. The way his head swayed from side to side during the high-speed playback wasn't exactly comforting, but at least I didn't have to look into those eyes. After a minute of watching him hike, I realized something that I hadn't noticed. There weren't any more clips. This was the last one. It was the last one he sent me. I felt uneasy, more than uneasy, panicked almost. So later that day, when a little notification popped up on my screen, I was elated. It was from Kevin's email address, a reminder that a new file had been added to the network folder. But other than the auto-generated update, there was nothing else, no comment from Kevin. I opened the network folder and felt my heartbeat quicken as I watched the loading bar slowly fill while the file was transferred to my hard drive. While I was waiting on the file transfer, I called Kevin again, and again, and again, and I kept going straight to voicemail. I replied to the email, too, but like with the phone call, there was no response. Finally, the video finished downloading. At this point, I might as well come out and say it. I don't know how these files ended up on my computer. I don't know who or what took Kevin's hard drive and uploaded the files to our shared folder on the network. I don't know if it's some sort of cruel joke. I don't know if Kevin is out there laughing it up right now. But somehow, I doubt it. I haven't seen or heard from Kevin in over 6 months. I should also say that I've turned over all the footage to the police, and all I can do is hope that someday my friend will come back, but again, I doubt it. You see, the last video clip contained something that I will never forget. I knew it from the moment that I placed it in the timeline of my editing software. The last clip shows only 15 seconds of footage, and it didn't require any special audio processing or image manipulation. What it showed was completely unambiguous. The tree, that goddamned gnarled tree, was centered in the frame. On its single massive branch, a braid of paracord had been looped around and hung down. From that paracord hung the yellow backpack, and as it swung from side to side, the paracord rubbed against the rough bark of the tree, producing a distinct sound, like when you wring a leather glove in your hands. This has been episode number 1 of 3 a.m. Tales for the Witching Hour. If you'd like to hear more stories, you can visit 3ampodcast.com. And if you enjoyed the show, consider supporting us on Patreon at patreon.com/3ampodcast. I've been your host, TJ Cooley, and I'll be back next week with another tale. But for now, I've got to go. There are strange, far places to haunt searchers after horror, and they're not going to haunt themselves.